Hello, everyone. Welcome to another YouTube Hangout. Excited to be here. I have a special friend and guest on the show. Her name is Kim Orlesky. She's got a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trying to sell more stuff. And she wanted to interview me for her podcast. And I said, absolutely, let's do it. And how about we do it as a YouTube Hangout too, so I can expose some of her ideas and her show to my audience. So Kim, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you so much, Evan. I'm so excited to be able to share and, kind of mesh brains today.
I love it. Well, maybe a quick intro for my audience of what you're all about, and then dive into your podcast. I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the leading sales coach for entrepreneurs. About 3 years ago, I kind of very similar to your type of journey where you went from this corporate life and you decided, whoa, that's not really for me. I had the same type of epiphany moment. And instead of just immediately going into entrepreneurship, I went and traveled around the world for a few months, 6 months actually. And when I came back, I thought I wanted to use all my skill sets working for companies like American Express, Xerox, and a few other Fortune 500s to actually help entrepreneurs sell more. There's a lot of passion out there, and I think the biggest thing is they don't understand how to communicate better with their clients. So that's what I wanted to actually pick your brain out about, because you've been doing this for several years now. So I mean, tell me a little bit about that, right? I mean, you got started working kind of in a startup, and then you went into the corporate field. But what was that moment for you that made define saying, you know what, corporate was not for me?
So I did not have a ton of corporate exposure. It started when I was in university and I needed a part-time job because I was going to go I was going to be in Europe for half the summer. And so I was on the investment banker route, and all my friends had jobs, summer jobs at iBank, and it was that's the path that I went down. And I couldn't do it because I was taking half the summer off. Nobody would hire me for half the summer. And so I did some other jobs, and I remember one, I was doing data entry and I was super bored, and I wasn't allowed to have music or food at my workstation. And I was on a team of 6 or 7 people, and I almost got fired because I always had music, headphones, and I ended up always wearing a turtleneck to work, and then running the wire through my turtleneck, and a little earbud pops out on the side. And I needed I like to snack. I need food. I was getting headaches, so I had some food. And I almost got fired, but then I ended up, they looked at our performance, and I was doing more work than everybody else on my team combined. I wasn't taking lunch breaks. When I'm working on something, I want to crush it. I'm bringing food because I don't want to leave. I want to work and get this stuff done. And anyway, I just felt like they were valuing the wrong things, and there's too much politics, and my skills weren't really being used well. And so that was my first kind of corporate experience, and it was for half of a summer and wasn't great. The hardest decision I had to make was when I was in university, and I still thought I'm about to graduate. I thought I was gonna go get these investment banking jobs, and I had opportunities to go and do it in Merrill Lynch, and also on the consultant side, McKinsey, or fly me to New York and whining and dining, all this stuff. And at the same time, I had a small, super small startup company that I was a part of, and was not making any money, $300 a month. And just something made me pick. I wanted to just at least try. I need to get certainty whether this business would work or not. And I said, I'm not going to take the job. I'll give myself a year. There'll be another job at the end of that if I want to. May not be the same job, may not be as good a job, but I can get another job where this business that I'm doing now won't come around again. And so I had to give it a try. Fortunately, it ended up working. It was part of the worst days of my life, but it ended up working out.
It always figures, doesn't it?
That's okay. And so I never went back to get a corporate job. So I had pretty minimal corporate exposure, but thankfully the entrepreneur life has been good for me.
Yeah. Well, no, that's wonderful, right? I mean, because $300 for a lot of people would actually discourage them from, kind of continuing on in an entrepreneurial style. What was the momentum for you that said, you know what, I'm going to continue to make this work?
It was discouraging for me too. It was the worst worst part of my life. Just feeling like I was grinding, I was hustling, I was putting in hours. It wasn't just slacking off, and we weren't getting results. And there's nothing that will crush your confidence like that, where you are putting in tons of work and not getting anything in return. I told my partner that I quit. I told him, you know what, this isn't working out. I want to do something where I feel good about myself, because this past year has sucked.
Yeah.
And so I told him I quit. That was the worst day of my life. And the next day, you know what, I just woke up and I can't quit. Like, hearing the words, I quit on this, something that I love doing. Like, it was something I hate, fine, I'll quit on it all day long. But something that I had a passion for, and seeing that I quit before I could figure it out, I couldn't do it. I had to find another way. And the thing that saved me was thinking, I'm not the first guy to try to do this before. And I was trying to come up with all the ideas myself, and I realized, you know what, somebody else has figured out how to sell software before. It was a biotech software company. Maybe nobody's had like massive success in my field yet, but there's other people who've had success selling software. What did they do? And that's when I started to model success, and that's when we started to get a little bit of transition and growth for the business. So why did I stick with it? Because I was crazy. Like, you have to be a little bit crazy. You love the thing that you're doing so much that you have to keep going and doing it, even though it's crazy. And so that's why passion is so important as an entrepreneur, because if you don't love what you're doing, you're going to give up as soon as it gets hard. And it's going to get hard. It's going to get crazy hard. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned modeling success, and I know like one of your latest projects has been, a lot of the top 10, success tidbits of some very, prominent figures in entrepreneurship. Who were kind of your first models that you used to kind of get you through?
So the very first entrepreneur that I looked up to is Bill Gates, who started Microsoft. I think before that, my parents, and we can dive deeper there if you want, but Bill Gates was the one who saved my business, who saved my $300 a month software company. He saved it. I've never met him. Maybe one day I'll have the good fortune to do that. But I looked at how Bill Gates made his first $1 million. That was my goal. How do I get there? How do I hit that goal? Not how he makes an extra $1 million now, but the first $1 million. How do you do that? And it was through partnerships, alliances. Their big deal came with IBM, where IBM was the biggest computer manufacturer at the time, and every IBM sold had Microsoft software on it. And that set this little software company up to take over the world. But Microsoft was already a $7 million company when they made that deal with IBM. Now, $7 million is still a pretty small company.
Yeah.
Tiny in comparison to what it would go on to become, but it was still $7 million more than what I had. I would have loved to have a $7 million company. So how did he get there? How did he build the $7 million company? Same thing, alliances. Find other alliance partnerships. The IBM deal was just the big partnership that came later. And so I love that idea, and I started thinking, okay, who else is already selling to my target audience? Who else already has my audience? Instead of trying to reach them one at a time, who already has that audience, and how can I find some kind of deal to make with them? And within a couple of weeks, I closed my first deal. I was so excited. It was with a company in Europe, and I pre-sold them on $12,500 or $13,500 upfront. And for me, that was bank. That was
that's like 1,000% more than what you were making.
What just happened? This is amazing, right? Like, to think about, the deals that we're working on now and how tiny that is. But that was I saw that email come back, and I was so pumped. And more importantly than that, immediate cash injection, was I had a model that I could replicate. Like, I could take that was only for some of the European countries. I can go and replicate that around the world. And that was the next thing I did, was set up distributorships. And we had customers then in over 30 countries. And I was just negotiating these deals and bringing in cash. And so all of that happened. And that was the turning point. That's when the company starts to take off. That's when we start getting, revenue. That's when we start getting media attention. And in 2 years, we get bought by a company, and my partners moved to California as a part of it. But that was a turning point, recognizing that, listen, we're not the first people to try to do this before. Somebody's figured it out, and modeling Bill Gates was the first one for me. And ever since, anytime I'm faced with a situation that I've never been in before, I don't know how to do it, I immediately ask myself, who's done this? How can I learn from them? Right? What podcast do I need to listen to, or video I need to watch, or book I need to read, so that I can learn what I need to learn and apply it to my business immediately?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So which kind of brings me into, like, I mean, you sold the business and then you start evancarmichael.com, right? With the intention of, helping more entrepreneurs. You talked a lot about, also iterations in the entrepreneurship journey, right? I mean, we start something and it's never how it actually ends. So when you started evancarmichael.com, what was it originally supposed to look like, and kind of how did it evolve to what it is today?
So I started the website, one, because there wasn't a ton of great content out at the time. And I wanted to help, because I faced such lows in my business where I wanted to quit, and I just wanted to make it a little bit easier for other people. I wanted to tell people that it's okay to suck and expect to suck at the start. Because everything I read before is all like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and I made it big, and
the rah.
Right, and you read the stories in the newspaper, and newspaper at the time, people read newspapers. And then I'm like, why am I not having success? How come it's so hard for me when everybody else seems to be crushing it, and I feel terrible? And I couldn't tell my friends that I wasn't having success, because I felt like a loser. So I wanted to make the journey a little bit easier for others. At the same time, because I sold my business and I was 22 years old, I got some media attention. I got asked to speak at a bunch of conferences. And so the website was just, here's where I'm going to be speaking, and here's some of my message. And there was no intent to build a huge empire or anything after it. It was just, I want to share the story, and people were asking about where I was going next. So this was it's a couple pages off of a website to say, here's more about me and where I'm going to be. That was the initial setup. I didn't go immediately into really helping entrepreneurs in a big way next. My next thing was venture capital. I didn't know what I wanted to do next, to be honest. I sold my business and I'm like, what do I do now? I don't know. It was great, but then also super depressing, because I didn't know what to do the next day. Like, oh, this thing I've been slaving over, I'm not a part of it anymore. So what's my next step? And bouncing around and just trying different things. And I got asked to join a venture capital company. And I thought, you know what? I never had to raise capital for my business. We always thought about it, but we never needed it. And we got acquired before we needed to raise. So I thought, okay, it's a good skill to learn, good understanding, good knowledge to bring on. And in that process, started creating content, and people asked if they can contribute to my website. And that was the starting point. And I wish I could say that, you know what, Kim, I knew this. Like, this is part of my master plan. This is 10 years in the making, and and now it's all worked out. But I had no idea. I had zero idea. Even now, like, where am I going? Where am I going to be in the next 10 years? I have zero idea.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing for the next 3 to 6 months. But beyond that, I'm just going to keep doing the things that I love doing. And my business is a constant reflection of who I am. And as I grow and I build and I get new interests and desires, my business shifts and evolves with me.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, yeah. And, it also speaks volumes about, how versatile you are, right? And one of the things I noticed about, your company is, I mean, currently you're having revenue income streams from, public speaking, business consulting, as well as, your entrepreneurial guides. Is it pronounced Zooge? Is that how you pronounce it with the Z?
Zuga guides. It's the Zuga.
Zuga.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, those are a few of the different streams of income that you have. When you go ahead and, you're obviously, you need to continue to bring in revenue. How are those sales completely different? Like, how do you pitch those, or how do you, promote those in different ways?
So a lot of it is based off of the audience and what they want and what they're asking for. I think to have success as an entrepreneur and to sell, you have to combine what you're really good at and passionate about, and you can be one of the best in the world, with what there's a demand for and what people want. You know, if you have a lot of skills and you're passionate about something, but nobody wants that, it's a good hobby, it's a good, you know, pastime, but it's not going to be a business. Whereas if you're only chasing opportunity and you don't care about it, you might make a few bucks, but it's never going to be something that you can really crush. And so it has to be that combination of what you love doing with where there's a demand. A lot of the revenue streams have come just without design again, right? Like, I have an audience, I've been building it up. A lot of the videos that I make are requests from my audience. Say, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Like, oh, okay, people have a need here, so I'm going to go and see that. Then I got invited to have a book deal because of my audience, right? So I just launched my first book. It came out in December, called Your One Word. I've now been asked to join boards of public companies, and you know, get a fee for joining the board. And I don't even know where we're going to expand into next. And so it's just paying attention. It's at the start, I never even expected YouTube to be a business model for me. But when you have an audience and when you're doing something important, there'll be lots of ways to monetize it. It's got to be the thing that you, again, can combine your interests with. So speaking, as an example, I love speaking, but I don't do a lot of it. Mm-hmm. I'm very particular about the cause that I'm working with. I don't want to just go speak at some company. It's got to be more interesting. So last year I went to Madrid and spoke to the heads of all the libraries from across Europe and helped them. Their question was, how do we stay relevant? How do libraries stay relevant in a social media world? So it's interesting. I want to go. Like, if you go, these are the heads of all of these libraries, and if they take that knowledge back and you've helped 3 or 4 of them who actually implement, that has a big impact. That's exciting for me. But otherwise, I don't. And so I consciously turned that business model down, right? I could be speaking every weekend of the year if I wanted to and be out traveling across America. But, you know, I have a son, I have a wife, I have businesses here. I like being here. And so I think you got to find the flow with what you want to do. Some people, that's the lifestyle that they want. Some people with books, like every 3 months there's a new book coming out. That's its own business model. Like, okay, book's out, great, sell it hard, awesome, okay. You know, a month off, great, new book, here we go, let's go. And they're like book machines. That's great too. Like, some people have 50 books under their resume, and that's their business model, and that's amazing too. You know, people have podcasts. You just grind out the podcast and you get advertisers, and as you get more views or listeners, downloads, you get more advertisers, and you just keep building that business model up. All of them can work. I think the key is that you're excited by the work. Like, you like doing the work. Like, if you didn't like interviewing people, your podcast wouldn't take off. Yeah. So you have to enjoy the process and not just the result.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Right. So when you, like, I mean, you know, when you're talking to entrepreneurs and everything, and perhaps they ask you questions such as, you know, like, Evan, you know, how many, you know, kind of like, you know, targets, or how many businesses should I absolutely be in? Do you have like an idea for them, or do you like kind of guide them? Like, you know, is there such a thing as having too many passions or too many revenue models?
I think the ideal situation is to combine them. I think that's where you stand out. I think if you only, like, if you love 2 different things and you're only doing this, you're never gonna win here, because you also have this is always gonna be pulling you in the opposite direction, and you're always gonna feel like you're missing out. Where the answer is to really smush them together and be the only person who does that. So an example I like to share, there's an entrepreneur Toronto-based entrepreneur who he's a financial advisor. And so he has a business being a financial advisor. Now, it's a insanely competitive business, being a financial advisor. You don't even control your own product, right? You're selling other people's product. Where an entrepreneur, you can make, you know, if I'm making a book or a cup or whatever, I can control it. So it's really just based on a little service. So he's got that. That's what he loves doing. His other love is hockey. And he loves hockey, and he can watch replays of the goal that was scored last night 8 times, and he still loves watching each time, and he, you know, tells his wife that that guy scored, it was such an amazing goal. Like, he really loves hockey. And so you think, well, those 2 things seem totally, like, how do you combine those things? Those things are totally opposites. And what he ended up doing was becoming the financial advisor for NHL hockey players. And you think these guys they're high net worth individuals. There's a market that he wants to go after. And when he talks to them, he understands the money side, being a good financial advisor, but he also gets the hockey side. Because a lot of these guys, they don't get the money side. They want to talk to somebody who speaks their same language, where somebody who's a financial advisor who's just trying to go after high net worth individuals and target hockey players as one of them, Steve is going to stand out. Because he is one of them. He'll talk about their goal, and it's not work for him to watch the replays and to understand the matchups and who's playing against each other. So because he combined his two passions together, he wins.
Yeah.
That's how he wins. And so I'd encourage all entrepreneurs to think about, how do you combine those 2 or 3 things that you love doing and smush it into one business, because that's where you're going to win.
Oh. I love that. That's wonderful. So, I mean, just kind of as we start to wrap up and everything, I have a couple standard questions that I always love asking. The first one being, I mean, you talked a little bit about, kind of the failures when you were working in the startup. But what was kind of like when you had evancarmichael.com, what was kind of like one of the big failures that you had that you learned the most from?
One of the things that I regretted at the start was, as I started building my website up, I wish I didn't call it after my name. I wish I called it like smallbusinesssuccesstips.com or something. Some like keyword oriented. I was very in the SEO game at the start there, because as you create content, you want to drive traffic. Your business models, the more traffic you have, the more money you can make, the more impact you can have. And so I was very focused on that, and I thought, Evan Carmichael, like nobody's searching for it. It's not a keyword. I really wish that I did some kind of keyword thing. But later on, I realized, you know what? I'm so happy that I actually built it off my name, because the personal branding means a lot as you build it up. And then I can always evolve my business into whatever I want it to be. It's always a reflection of me. Where I look at a company like, Hewlett Packard, their first product was audio oscillators. If they called themselves Santa Monica audio oscillators as their business, then it's super restricted and limiting. And so it ended up being, it was my biggest regret. And then it became like, oh, I'm actually so glad that I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So my naivete, I guess, at the start ended up saving me.
And that's a good one, because you see a lot more entrepreneurs that actually had to spin the other way around, right? Where now, they create a brand and then they actually go entirely to their name. So yeah, you foresaw, the personal branding side of it.
I wish. I'm not that smart.
All right. And then, kind of the last question, for new entrepreneurs that are just getting started, what would you give them as a tip to help them get more sales, or, kind of work with their clients even better?
If it's a new entrepreneur who hasn't, like if they're just getting started, I would say, 1, make sure that you are doing the thing that you absolutely love doing. I think too many people pick up a copy of Entrepreneur Magazine and they see the 50 hottest trends to start this year, and I'm going to go do that. I'm going to start an app company. That's where the money is. I'm going to go do an app. Meanwhile, you've never programmed anything, and you don't really have a great idea for an app. You can make money in any industry, really, as long as you're providing value. That's what you want to focus on: providing value to your customers. And so, thinking about how can you combine that thing that you love doing with what helps people. If you're at the very early stages, I would honestly look at doing a service before a product, since you don't have to spend money to do it, and it gets you close to your customers. So you get cash flow coming in, it gets you close to your customers, you get to really understand their needs, their wants, their pain points, and then opens up opportunities to then sell product into later. So
that's awesome. That's a great tip, right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs, we start to lose kind of that passion, right? And we have to remember, why did I originally get into this? And when we can restart that, for most people, I mean, that can be a wake-up moment in the next day. Well, thank you so much for your time, Evan. I really appreciated, having the conversation with you. I learned a lot, and I know my listeners are going to learn even more. If they want to get a hold of you, I guess evancarmichael.com is the best way of being able to get in touch.
Yeah, the website. If you want to look at the book, wherever you buy books, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all those places too.
Awesome, right? And the book is Your One Word. So go check that out as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the fun, Kim.
All right, I guess that's it.